So I'm here today with Christina McKelvie, who is local MSP for the Hamilton constituency, and it's a Saturday balmy afternoon before that. It's very hot in here, in fact, before the vote next Thursday. So thank you, Christina, for being here.
Thank you.
Christina, I'm going to ask you a range of questions because I don't know you personally, and neither does probably most of the audience. And when they do see you, you're very good at getting to the point when you're in Scottish Parliament, and that's why I described you as feisty earlier on. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. So I'd just like you to tell me a little bit about your background, and are you from Hamilton, for example?
I'm not from Hamilton, but I've worked in this area for a number of years when I worked in social work services, so I got to know the area really, really well.
Okay.
But I grew up in the East End of Glasgow.
Did you?
In Easterhouse.
Oh really? Interesting.
Oh, definitely, yeah. All the way through the Thatcher years. I remember 1979, I was 10.
Okay. And what was life like and growing up there? Was it quite difficult?
It was challenging in many ways. Really good grounded parents. My mum had given up her work to look after the kids. My dad was an iron moulder. Started in the Highland and Wolf shipyards. Got to know Jimmy Reid at that point. And then he was in Lanarkshire. And a steelworks in Lanarkshire, so you can imagine, the heritage of that and the background of that and the radicalisation almost through the Thatcher years that brought to our household. Growing up in Easterhouse could be challenging because you either ran with the gang or you ran really fast, so I got medals for running really fast. It became part of the sort of the Glasgow Running Club and stuff then. So you had a choice of two futures, and it's interesting that our message in this election is a choice of two futures, because you had a choice of two futures growing up in Easterhouse. You either went down the future of you stuck in and you got yourself a job and you stayed away for all the bad influences, or you just went down that route and your life was lost. If you went into the gang culture and the glue sniffing culture and whatever, your life was lost. And when you go to Easterhouse now, you'll see that community is divided in that way. But in saying that, if anything ever happened to anybody, the whole community pulled together and you could see a real community spirit.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, Easterhouse, for those who don't know about Easterhouse, how big is it? Because it is a big estate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of these big post-war estates that were built just outside Glasgow. Majority of people all came from some of the slums and the Gorbals and Royston Road, and they all moved out to there. There was no real recognition put to bringing about community cohesion, so communities sort of are built up around about territories themselves, so there was a very strong gang culture. That has dissipated now.
Do you remember the names of any of them?
Oh, the Den Toy, the Agro.
The Agro, good name.
The Agro. I stayed in the Den Toy area.
Oh, did you really?
Because that was Den Millen Street, Den Millen Place, so the Den part of that was where the Den Toy came from. But that's a part of modern history, is the gang culture in the East End of Glasgow. And so there was choices that were put in front of you, whether you grabbed the right ones or the wrong ones. It was just luck in some cases.
And is there a history in your family of politics?
Yeah, well, we're always a very political household. As I say, my father was went into the RAF as sort of a soft nationalist, came out a hard nationalist, but to be fair to him, he flirted a wee bit with communism as well, and he went to some of the Jimmy Reid speeches and talks and that in Dunoon. The weekends away, because he said, well, you got fed, you get taken out of Glasgow for a weekend, and it was down at the seaside. But gave him a lot of really strong radical thoughts about what Scotland should be. On my mother's side, my mother was always a very, very strong nationalist, and that's interesting because their family are Mackays from Sutherland, and her grandfather was a Jock Mackay, Jock Mackay, and he was an old-fashioned liberal, so he was an old-fashioned home ruler.
Yeah.
He believed in Robert Cunningham Graham and his message, and Keir Hardie and his message, So we always had, conversations. There was always political conversations in our household. And we've got a big sort of a mixed religious family as well. So you had, the Catholic side and the Protestant side, and my other granny was a Salvationist. So, a very, very mixed politically and sort of a religiously family background. So always debating.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. So when you left school, what was your first job? And how did you go from your first job to becoming an MSP?
Well, I was a bit of a weirdo because I stayed on at school in Easterhouse.
Weirdo, by the way, is a very good word that you can only know in Scotland. You might need to explain it.
Yeah, well, it was a bit strange because I stayed on at school when the majority of the people that I was at school, we all left, and they were all either going into yacht schemes or or not doing very much at all. But I decided I wanted to stay on and get some hires. the plan was for me to go into nursing, which I did, but I did that for about 18 months and decided it wasn't for me. So I shifted to social work, and I was in social work for 19 years. Started out working with adults with learning disabilities, and straight away realising some of these people don't have a voice, they don't have advocacy, so get involved in advocacy projects, and how can we allow people, that maybe, have got difficulty engaging with the world, how do we get them engaged? So I made some of them quite politically active as well, because at one point one of the projects was being closed and they started a petition and they got involved in public meetings, and it was around about 1999, so Scottish Parliament was happening then. Frank McKelvie was the Glasgow Council leader at the time, so young folk would turn up at public meetings and stuff in Chinham about closures of social work projects and things. So within my working career there was an opportunity, because the programme that we ran for adults with learning disabilities was called Promoting Independence.
Was it really?
So, because you were promoting personal independence of the person, but that personal independence isn't that much different for me from the independence of a nation. It's not that much difference. It's about making the choices that are best for you. But in the midst of all that, because of my father's trade union background and the relationship we had and the understanding we had with Jimmy Reid, I was always a very strong trade unionist, so got involved in NALGO, became a representative, got involved in Unison, and I'm still a member of Unison, and until this day I chair the SNP Parliamentary Trade Union Group, so
right, great,
it's never left me.
Strong links,
and I think in 1997, although I had been a bit politically active, but I'd had my kids and stuff like that, so life and work and stuff get in the road. When Tony Blair stood in the steps of Downing Street and said that one of his first acts would be to bring about devolution for Scotland, Ireland and Wales, and I thought, well, that'll be a start, and I rejoined the SNP the next day.
Did you really? Well,
so Tony Blair is responsible for me being here now.
Is it really? Well, my sister-in-law works for Tony Blair, so I might have to pass that message on. But interestingly, that was also when I first joined the SNP. Very shortly after, I was very excited about the fact devolution was an opportunity for Scotland.
Stepping stone,
yeah. And we, of course, most of us knew that. It didn't really seriously think it just stopped there. And I'm sure there's members of the Labour Party who knew that as well. So from there, how do you become an MSP? Tell me, what happened?
Well, I got involved with the party in an organisational point of view. So locally, I was organising in the National Organisations Committee. I was organising and learning lots of new skills. And many people would say to me, "Oh, you should stand." Oh, no, I don't want to stand. I'd rather be, making sure it all works and fits into place and stuff. But two very, very prominent people in my life at that point was Fiona Hislop, because she was VC. Policy, and she ran National Assembly, and I found National Assembly a fantastic way of really knocking about policies that we could bring about should we ever be in government, and that's where the childcare policy came from, free prescription policy, so that really inspired me to think, well, how can we do more with this? And Fiona was a person that really encouraged me to go and get vetted, and I have to say the person who was on the phone the night before, telling me you can do this, you can get on with this, was Nicola. So two very, very strong, prominent women, and when I was asked to come and stand in Hamilton, the links with Winnie Ewan were just, so powerful, that allowed me just to take that message, back to Hamilton and bring Hamilton back to the SNP and back to being an independent supporting town.
And you've been an MSP for how long now?
7 years now.
7 years. And your roles now that you play, because you do quite a lot, because I've seen you in various select committees. So tell me some of the most interesting roles you've had.
The committee that I chair right now is Europe and External Relations. And when I was asked to be the convener of that in post 2011, some people said to me, "Oh, it's a really good committee." Some people said it's awfully boring. It's Europe and it's and I thought, well, it'll not be boring if I'm there, because I don't like boring. We'll find something to make it interesting, and that's what we did. We looked at different aspects of it. But to say that this committee has become one of the key committees in this journey to independence, because the white paper was published, big section of it, Europe.
Yes.
Another big section, external affairs.
Yes.
And international relations and things like that. So we've obviously had a whole year to look at all of these aspects of the white paper, knock them inside out and back to front, and see, right, what would work, what wouldn't work, how much would that cost, how would we get this to go, the right way. All that type of thing has been really, really interesting. And the upshot of that is we've published some really, really interesting reports that have even been congratulated by some newspapers.
Really? Well, there's a surprise. Oh, that's great. And Christina, tell me, we're 5 days before the vote. How is it going in Hamilton? Because I've obviously just got you for the first time today.
Yeah, it's going extremely well. I would say when we first started out canvassing, because we've been working as a team for a long time now, it was pretty tough. You know, we were losing canvasses and we didn't have such a big team. That's just grown and grown and grown, and the closer it's got to the election, you know, the more. And I can't say that in the past 3 months we've lost a canvass. Some of them have been 50-50. But the majority of them have been in favour of independence, with quite a sizable undecided section. So what we decided to do was extract all of them out of our data. We put together a great wee DVD. It's got John Jappy, Ivan McKee, Philippa Whitford. There's a couple of young women, English women that live and work in Scotland, explain why they're voting yes. And it was all wee short videos, because we thought the majority of undecided people are people who are not on the internet, they're not using social media. So how can we get them just wee short, sharp bits of information that will help them make up their mind, and how do we make it varied enough to hit all our target group? So that's what we did, and we've been delivering those to all the undecided people with a covering letter, thousands of them. Now when we went back in the past few days to do a backup canvass, we are coming back with, like, instead of 50 undecided, 9, 10,
Really?
11 undecided, and people, some of them going to no, but the majority of them shifting to yes. We've had people coming into our yes hub saying your DVD was fantastic, I've passed it on to my granny, I've took it to my lunch club, I've given it to the taxi driver, you know, can I get another one because I've got other people that need it. And people really reacting really well to the DVD. Because it gave them just the information that they needed to answer their questions. We'll get you. I've got one in my handbag because I carry them in everywhere I go.
I have to say this because we've been all around the yes groups around Scotland. I haven't heard of a DVD like this yet, so that's been great.
That's great. It's superb.
So I know it's 5 days to go, and we've had a bit of a tough week with David Cameron trying to put a cat amongst the pigeons, or at least the big business pigeons, and we've also had the BBC doing its best to keep the British state together. Of course, it's part of its mandate. But do you feel there's been a bounce against that in the last year or so? Well,
interestingly, we held a public meeting in Hamilton last night for undecided people with Ivan McKee and Dr. Philippa Whitford there. But when I came over, I got a taxi over last night. The taxi driver was a no, all the way up until last week. And he says, I'm undecided now, leaning towards yes. He says, because how dare, you know, big business or politicians that don't live here come and tell us how to vote? How dare they come and do that? And it was really interesting. So he got a wee blue book and a DVD before I left the taxi last night. And a tip, of course. But, you know, that was somebody who had been a solid no up until last week, until he said, hold on, this is just getting outrageous. Who are all these people and how dare they come and tell me how to think? And that was his exact words. How dare they come and tell me how to think?
Now, we've heard that in the last couple of days as well, the same thing. The insult of the flag trying to be flown over Westminster, stuff like that, which is just really...
I think that was a message.
Yeah.
The Saltire was refusing to be flown over down the street.
So you're quite excited over the next week then?
Really excited. Probably too excited, need to sort of calm down a wee bit. But tonight we've got the Pitiless Storm, David Heyman's play in Blantyre Miners Welfare tonight. So there's a group of us going up there to watch that.
We might head there as well, and that sounds great.
Well, David's up there tonight at 7 o'clock. So.
And what's the plans for the next few days?
We are 2 target groups, pensioners, so we're looking at pensioners clubs, pensioners events, all sorts of things that are going on, and we're targeting groups to all of these, dispatching with the Jim Sellers pension letter and the DWP pension letter, because what we're hearing in the streets here when you see no campaigners is them telling pensioners you'll lose your pension, which is a travesty. It's scare tactics of the worst kind. And when you see, you know, a vulnerable person's face sort of a crumbling because they're terrified, that's just not on. So we're going to target pensioners and try and reassure them over the next few days. The other group is 16 and 17 year olds, so we're dispatching groups to every high school at lunchtime, because the kids that have been coming in have been telling us lunchtime's the best time to grab them because they've got time to talk while they're eating their sandwiches, or they're going to Morrison's or up to the cafe. So we've got groups targeted Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every single high school in the local area to talk to 16 and 17 year olds as well. So that's the 2 demographics, you know, that we think, you know, are really important in this is we're wise old birds that have been here for a long time that need reassurance, and, you know, we're young people that need to know this is about their future.
Last question. Actually, I'm going to open it to you, Christina. What was the last thing you'd like to say to anybody who's watching us just now?
Think about what this means. Think about what it means, not just for you, but for your family, for your children, for their children, for your granny, for your grandpa, you know, for your neighbour, think about what this could mean. This could mean the start of something amazing. And when you walk into the Scottish Parliament, carved in the ground is work as if you're in the early days of a better nation. We've got a chance to create that better nation, and it's in your hands. You're the people that can take this forward, and I really, really hope you'll vote yes.
Great, Christina, real pleasure. Thank you very much. You're going to get me in tears again.
Open and right in the Port of Leith. They're going to ask the people, is independence best? I'm thinking Bonnie Scotland, but the answer could be yeah.